What's up, my friends? This is Coach Aaron Saft in the Running is Life podcast. Today, one of my promised guests is Julie Jordan. Julie, amazing lady, finished the Vol State 500K, and this conversation is all about her experience at the Vol State 500K. Just a tough race, and Julie persevered and did an amazing job, and she does a great narrative and speaks through a lot of her experience. I really enjoyed just listening to this. I didn't talk much till the end, where I got to ask her some questions about it, but rightly so. She needed to express this and get it out. It's a really cool story, so I hope you enjoy this conversation with Julie. A few things before I get to that conversation. My friends over at Solly Ultra, for those of you that don't know, I race directed the Solly Frosty Foot. It was formerly called. Our friends now call it the Solly Ultra. They are the same people that put on the No Business. So I was the second race director for the Solly Ultra races. Again, formerly called the Solly Frosty Foot. These guys are the fourth to continue putting on this race, and it's because the race is still going on that I want to support it. I did not want anything in return for this. They offered to pay for a commercial. It's not necessary. I love this sport. I love people doing great things for it, and these guys keep doing great things and putting on Solly, whether I can run it or not. I think it's just a fantastic race, an awesome location on Fontana Lake. So if you can go, the race date is January 18th of 2025. There's a 50K, a 30K, and an 8K, just like I used to have. So I want to support these guys and get the word out about there. From what I saw, I think it actually is the USATF 50K Trail Championships next year, which is super cool. I hope that's true. I'll have to verify that, but whether it is or not, the 50K uses all four loops out at Solly. Beautiful setting. It's a great first-time event for those looking to do a further distance, whether that is, just get used to the trails and run an 8K, run a 30K, which is roughly 18 and a half to 19 miles, or a 50K. Just a fantastic place to do it. So in support of that, they've given me a discount code. You can receive 10% off your registration by entering my last name in all caps. S as in Sam, A as in Adam, F as in Frank, T as in Tom. I'll put that in the show notes, but I just wanted to extend that to you guys because I think it's a fantastic race that I hope continues to go on for years and years. I used to sell the race out. It just got to the point where race directing just was too much for my life, and I turned it over to somebody else, and he has in turn moved on to turning it over to these guys. So let's continue to support this race because it is a wonderful place. Like I said, if I can get out there, I certainly will. January 18th it's always a tough date because of my daughter's birthday as well as indoor track meets. So I told the guys I don't know if I can make it out or not, but I would love to. So I hope you can. So use that discount code SAFT, all caps. Again, I'll put it in the show notes. Right now I'm going to get on with my conversation with Julie, and then I'll hop back on after that and catch you guys up with everything else that's going on here in the world of running is life. Well, Julie Jordan rejoins me. The last time she was on the podcast, I believe we talked about the Yeti 100 after your first 100-mile finish. Is that my memory correct?
That's right.
And here we are talking about a 320-mile finish.
Oh yeah, 314. Don't give me 6 extra miles, although I probably wandered off course a little bit somewhere.
Well, you went to people's houses and hotels and all sorts of fun stuff, which we can talk about. So I'm sure you had some extra in there. But let's just go back for those that didn't hear our first podcast, and let's just talk about Julie and where she came from and how she got to this point of doing the Vol State 500K.
Mm-hmm. Well, it felt like a long time ago that we did that 100. I mean, that was when we had first started. We had only been working together for about 6 weeks at that point, right?
Something like that.
Yeah, and that was 2020. That was the middle of COVID. So A lot of things have changed in running for a lot of people, I guess, since then. But I have enjoyed the journey from then to now. And gosh, ultra running is just the kind of thing that just kind of feeds you. And the better it gets, the better it gets. And then it just becomes more and more addictive. So we've
Yeah.
done a couple other big races together. Some of them went great. We have a DNF in there, which I'm still sore about. And just lots
With
and
the
lots of.
Grinch.
What's that? Yeah,
With
that
the
was that
Grinch.
was rough for me. And I thought I was okay with it, but my daughter, I think she hears about it at least once a month or so. So it was nice to have something big to go for this summer and to be able to throw myself into it and have it go so well. So,
Absolutely. When did your ultra journey begin?
um, well, I've always been a runner. I've always enjoyed running. I was running as a kid. I ran through middle school and high school and college. I started doing marathons right when I finished college. And after I had done, I don't know how many marathons, maybe somewhere around 10 or 15, I met a runner who encouraged me to jump into the ultra running world. And that was Bill Keane. And, um, and he really welcomed me into the sport. And after that, he said, when you do your first 50K, call me and let me know. And then he happened to be there when I did my first 50K and inducted me into his group of runners that he cared for and took care of and inspired and encouraged. And it's such a great group. And
What group is that?
he that is the Buttercups, Runners from Hell. It's a really fantastic group. And Bill passed away about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. His birthday was 3 days ago. And so he's really, really missed. He he really encouraged me to jump in with both feet. We were running a race together, the race that we met at, and you know how you just kind of fall in and run with a runner for a while. And he said, in the course of just this conversation, I can tell you're an ultra runner at heart. I can tell that by the way you move, the way you run, the way you think about it, the way you talk about it, the way you can talk while you're running. He said you're controlled and you're even. He said you're going to be a great ultra runner. And I believed him. I don't know if he said it to, I don't know what but he said it and I believed it. And that's been it ever since.
Here we are.
So I miss him very much. Yep.
Oh,
Hmm.
awesome. So it sounds like he was a huge influence in your ultra running career. Um,
Definitely.
that's awesome. I know you're a part of a few different groups. It seems a great place to be motivated by others. You are very active, not only in your racing, but you also volunteer and crew a lot. Do you want
Oh,
to talk about some
yes.
of the other groups and things that you're involved in and do? Because I think that's a great thing to expose people to so they know what's out there.
Oh gosh, yes. There's so much to do. And as much as we all love to run and have our races and have our day that we've trained for, and that's our A race, that race has to happen with lots and lots of volunteers and lots of volunteers and crew and pacers. I love to crew. It's so much fun to you see the whole other side of the race, and I can't believe how much you learn and how much better you get and how many skills you can acquire and tips you can see by volunteering at an aid station. You see people come in and you see what's working great with people and you see what's giving people a hard time, and it's really fun. I have a cousin who's super super fast, and so while I could never run with him or pace with him, anytime he is going somewhere, I say, "Well, I'm going to come and cruise." Sometimes he doesn't even ask me to. Now he kind of does because he knows I'm going to tag along no matter what. But I love crewing for my cousin Patrick. He's super fast, and watching him race is he dials it all in. He races so smart. He loves it so passionately. So it's really fun to get to see that level of racing because I am a back of the pack. I mean, I am the DFL most of the time. So when I crew, I get to see a whole other realm of the race that I will never get to see. I mean, we're rushing from A station to A station because he's trying to beat 24 hours or beat 20 hours or, depending on what race he's at.
Sure.
And then, and sometimes he has races that go not as he intended, and just to watch him problem solve. And I think that's one of my favorite things about ultra running and some other hobbies is when you're out there and no matter, I mean, you could have spent 6 months, 9 months training for something, and then things don't go according to plan or how you hope they would, and then you've got to problem solve, and not just a matter of are you capable of doing it, but can you make it all work out? So volunteering, please volunteer for as many races as you can in your area, because the RDs need us. They need that help. If you're injured, go and volunteer. If you have a big race the next weekend and you can't race that weekend, go and volunteer. If your friends need you to crew and pace, pay the favor back for when they've done it for us. So gosh, I love crewing, I love volunteering. It's fantastic. You don't get to sleep, but you can eat a little differently, kind of eat better, when you're pacing and crewing. So it's just so much fun. I mean, it's fun when it's your race too, so it's just all good.
That's awesome. Which kind of evolves into what happened at the Vol State 500K. So for those that aren't familiar, would you just take a moment and describe what is the Vol State 500K?
Sure thing. It is a race that is predominantly across the state of Tennessee. It starts in Missouri at Darena Landing. You ride a ferry across the Mississippi River, and then you are into Kentucky. You run for about 10 to 14 miles into the edge of Kentucky, and then you spill into Tennessee near Hickman, Tennessee. And after that, you run pretty much south until you get to the city of Lexington, and then you turn and you run east until you get to about the city of Columbia, and then you kind of snake down around to Kimball, Tennessee, and after that you cross a gigantic blue bridge, which is a very iconic spot on the course. You get into Alabama for a couple miles, and then you finish in the state of Georgia at Castle Rock. So it gives you 314 miles and 5 states, which is really amazing to say I ran in 5 states in one race. It's very great. There are very few rules in the race. You cannot get in anyone's car unless you are ordered into the backseat of a police car. They specify that. But then your race is probably over for some other reason. And you can't go into anyone's house. You can go in businesses, but you can't go in anybody's house. One thing that is really beautiful about this race, the corridor through which the race runs has loved and embraced and accepted the Vol State runners every year, and different people set up different angel stations. They're called the Road Angels. And this is one thing that drew me to the race. I was so curious about the Road Angels, and a lot of them say, we saw these people going by and we asked what it was, and we wanted to help, and so we gave some water, and the next year we set out a cooler with lots of cold water, and the next year we tried to have some snacks. And the Road Angels are a really beautiful aspect of this, and just people wanting to help people and people wanting to give to people while they're trying to do something that's taxing or hard for them or meaningful to them. And it's a very special, beautiful thing that's happening out there in Tennessee every July.
Right. And there's a few things here that we could probably expound a little bit deeper on. Is one is the course marked?
The course is not marked. I saw one place where there was something written on the road at a turn, and I thought, oh, good, if there's a turn, it will be easy to spot. And I never saw one again. And I was nervous about that. I like to backpack trails, and of course they're blazed or whatever their system of navigation is. So I was nervous about this because people are expected to download a GPX map and follow along through the GPX map. And I don't have a lot of experience with that, but now, of course, I feel pretty good about it, because and another thing people said is this course is very simple. There's only a couple turns, and literally when you get off the ferry, you pretty much stay straight until you get to Lexington, and then you stay on that road for I don't know, 100 miles. So as long as you can stay straight and follow the route signs, and it is very easy to follow the map on the GPX. Most people carry it on their phone. They used to be paper copies of maps, and people would laminate them and throw away the page 1 once they're on page 2 and that kind of thing. So nowadays, yes, it's very easy to find the course and to stay on the course. But as far as marking, it is not marked.
And then that leads me into the next question. besides the Road Angels, you said there's not really any aid stations per se, correct?
Correct. The race does not set up aid stations, but you are welcome to make use of businesses that you find. Gas stations are the best bet. There are restaurants along the way. There are hotels along the way. And then there's the Angels. So there are several stretches where there is not businesses you can utilize. And you kind of need to know beforehand that you need to either carry extra water or have some supplies on you. And that brings up another point. There's kind of two categories for the race, which is screwed and crewed. So if you are crewed and you have a crew person with you that can assist you, that can bring food or water to you if you need it, then those stretches are a lot different than if you're in the other category, which is screwed. So if you are a screwed runner, you can buy extra bottles of water or extra Gatorades, whatever you like, at the last store before these big expanses of nothing. So that's a very, very interesting aspect of this race, that the crewed and the screwed, because it's a completely different race, I think. Well, on the one hand, yeah, it's a completely different race. On the other, everyone's getting 314 miles on their feet from point A to point B. So it's very interesting. This race is just fascinating.
Yeah. And then this is also, if you want to talk about who puts this race on.
Yeah, Last Lake, Gary Cantrell. So this was his vision. He did lots and lots of journey runs and I don't know all of his history and all his details, but this is a fantastic, amazing person. What a mind he has. So he did journey runs, and I remember listening to a podcast of him probably 7 years ago, and he said his family would drop him off at the state line, and he'd have a credit card in his pocket, and he'd just walk home, and he'd see him in 8 days or so. And of course, he is the creator of the Barkley marathons and Barkley Fall Classic, and out of this race, he also made up HOTS, which is Heart of the South, and Latch, which is the last annual Third Circle of Hell. So he has three of these journey runs in the summer, one in June, one in July, one in August. He's done transcon walks. He was doing one this summer and did from the Pacific coast over to Oklahoma. He stopped when he got to his parents' grave, and then he came home and was there for Fall State, which I was really glad I got to see him and have him be a part of my Fall State experience. And he, of course, starts the race by lighting a cigarette, and once you see that first puff, the race is on. So it was quite fun to see that in person at the beginning, at the landing of the ferry at the beginning of Fall State. See Laz light up that cigarette.
Absolutely. How many people participate? At least how many people start?
There were about 126 people that started. I might be not perfectly accurate on that number, but about 126.
Okay. And is there a prerequisite that you have to do in order to be able to get into this race and compete?
I don't believe so, because otherwise I don't know if I would have been in. On the day it opens up at Ultra Sign Up, it closes it fills immediately. So I'm not sure. I think there is talk of how many vets are let in versus how many new people. I know that there's a really strong desire for new people to get in, and there's such a strong presence of vets and so many vets that love this race so much, and they come back every year. So I don't know what the answer is to that, and I would hate to guess and get it wrong. So I'll just say I'm not sure. But it must not be too tough, because they let in because I got in. So I don't know.
With that said, what really you mentioned that the Road Angels were kind of a draw, an interest of this race. But aside from that, what made you want to do this? What was your impetus behind running 314 miles across the state of Tennessee in the middle of July?
Yeah, that's a good question, because you don't sign up for something like this on a whim, do you?
No.
I have a lot of reasons that I was interested in this. A couple years ago, actually, a friend said, "Let's go do Vol State next year." And this friend is so fun. Anything she says, I'm like, "Okay, yeah, let's do that." And I didn't really quite know what it was. So about 4 years ago, she said, "Okay, it opens up tomorrow. Let's get on." So we got on Ultra Sign Up, and I read it, and I was like, what the heck? I don't want to do this. So it opened, and she was like, you have to be ready. As soon as it opens, you have to sign on. So I sat there and I counted to like 300. It opened and I counted. I just sat there still and counted to 300. And then I tried to register, and I knew that would get me waitlisted. And I was like, oh, I got waitlisted. I'm sorry. So then it came around where it says, you have been called off the wait list. Would you like to fulfill your registration? I said no. But it did make me think, well, what would it take to be the kind of runner, or to become the kind of runner that could do this? And at that point, I didn't have any multi-day experience except for hiking. And I love backpacking, but this is a completely different beast. So at that point was when I started thinking about stage running something. And when I made up that stage run CT22 that we did in 2022, that was really to kind of test my body and see what my body would do on multi-days and how my body would handle. And that was going to be about 7 days and 180 miles. And then we did it in a little bit less than 7. And that was going to be kind of an example of what it might be like, with a lot of control factors. And the control factors would be that I knew the course, because I had through hiked that trail in 2016. So I was going to do the trail again for the second time. And the control factor of being up in a part of the country that I knew really well, and I knew the temperature really well. And in the summer, it's very cool. The humidity is a lot less than where I live. So it was going to be a really nice environment to kind of test out my legs and my body and multi-day. And then, of course, my wonderful Aunt Kathy and 2 fantastic friends joined me on that adventure. And it was just one of the best things in my life. So I was really encouraged when on day 4 of that, my body felt really good. And then day 5 and day 6, they felt better. And I had been averaging about, we did about 30 miles, 25 to 32 miles a day on that. And then on day 6, I did 55 miles, and I felt so good. And after that, I really thought that I might legitimately try out for something like Ball State and see how it went. So that was, to answer your question, what was the draw for me? I wanted to, of course, anytime we line up for something, it's for that wonderful magic of, can I do it? And how will I stack up against, this finite distance, just 314, that's just a number. How will I do against it? And then the adventure part of it, I wanted to see all of the people who were also wanting to sign up for something like that. I want to see who those people were, and I don't know, just talk to them, get to know them. And I liked the adventure aspect, but I also really liked that it was in this corridor that knew the race, loved the race, welcomed the race. And it made me feel like it would be a very, very safe place to try this out. I knew that for something like this, I would need to be running my own race. And I thought it would be so great if I could meet up with someone that was the same pace as me, and they wanted to sleep when I want to sleep, and then I wouldn't have to be alone at night. And I told my mom, me and my friend Trish were going together, which we were. And she was like, oh, good. So you guys will stay at the same place every night. And I said, yeah, that's the plan. But I knew that it would probably be where I needed to do whatever I needed to do on my own. So the fear aspect was a little bit of a concern for me, but I figured in this race where there were a lot of people all moving down this route that's so well established and everyone in the towns are used to all the runners, that it would be a really great chance for me to try that out and to, test my physical limits, test my fear limits, test my everything limits. So it was just a perfect combination of all the things I love about being outdoors, and all wrapped up in one really grueling, hard taxing package. I couldn't resist it.
Perfect. What does the cutoffs look like for this race?
Good question, because I had a big problem with one of them. So one thing that was interesting about this race, if you average 31 and a half, so basically if you average 32 miles a day, you'll make all the cutoffs, you'll make all the mileage is fine. So I just kept saying over and over and over, 50K a day for 10 days, that's 31 miles, that's 310 miles. And so when I got there, and I knew that we have check-ins, 2 check-ins every day, and you just text in and say what mile you're at. And the logistics are so great for this race, and the people that are running it. So Laz runs it, and Carl Aniak is also the kind of second in command or taking over, kind of phasing in with Laz. So these guys are running this race unbelievably. The other third person in charge of this race is Jan. She drives the meat wagon. So if someone is having trouble, they send the meat wagon out to collect them, and that person rides off the course. When you're done, you call her. So there are 2 check-ins every day, 7:30 a.m., 7:30 p.m. We all have a Google form. You just go and fill it out with whatever mile you're at. And then that comes out. That's a live doc. So about 10 minutes later, my phone would start blowing up. Everyone would be like, you made it to this mile. Great, great, great. So at 7:30 p.m., I wasn't done running for the day every day because I was going to, run till past 7:30 p.m. So I wouldn't be the mileages didn't work out the way I imagined they would when I was kind of doing my mental planning. I thought if I stop by, 11 midnight every night and I've done my 33 miles, but that means at 7:30 I'm not there yet. So it was an interesting adjustment to really not think of each day 33 miles, but you had to think of every 12 hours 17 miles. And sometimes if you have a big sleep block, that's off kilter. So it became quite stressful to me to make each check off. And then at 7:30, I would think, oh, I made it, good. And then all of a sudden I was 12 hours away from the next check-in. And I had some problems at the beginning. I had a really rough start. I'm very surprised how bad the start of it went for me, because I felt like I had trained well, I had prepared well, and I feel like I did a lot of really good preparation besides just the physical preparation. I went out on the Mountain to Sea Trail, 3 weeks out, and did a whole week on the trail. And it was a section that was road walk. So I was like, this is fantastic preparation. I'm on the roads. I'm walking from gas station to gas station. Some people had even talked about you need to prepare your stomach and your gut to eat junk food all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, well, I'm lucky here because all I ever eat is junk food. So I didn't have to prepare my stomach. But that week out on the Mountain to Sea Trail, which was just day hikes, but I did about 50 miles that week, and it was great training. And I was even road walking where you have to walk on the slant. It really affects your shins. And I was like, this is great. I'm going to be so well prepared. Well, and I got to Vol State, and my first day was terrible. I had blisters at mile 8, and I haven't gotten blisters in years. So blisters at mile 8, where I was having to stop and address them. And the heat was a big concern as I was preparing, because I have the skin condition that we've been kind of battling for the last, I guess, the whole time we've been working together.
Right.
And I was going slow, but I was like, well, I always feel better by day 4, day 5. And I was like, and I was not quite sure how it worked, if you like how much of a bubble there was of if you were a mile or two behind at the 7:30, but then you were 5 miles ahead at the next 7:30, how wishy-washy it was. And so on day 3, I was moving really slow because of my blister. My feet were in really bad shape.
Oh.
And one thing I'll say about this race, I learned so much about feet care and blisters. And I would work on my feet for about an hour every night. So whether I was at a hotel or one night I slept on a cot at a farmer's market, or wherever I was, I did a lot of feet work trying to repair my feet so that they'd be good enough to go another 12 hours. So I was doing a lot of feet work. My feet were really in bad shape. I was walking super gingerly and tenderly, and the pain was really bad. So I was moving really slow. So on day 3, I had got myself a hotel where I thought I would end up about 11 a.m. because I wanted to get in a hotel and sleep and be cool in the AC for a couple hours during the hot, and then go out at night. And the whole time, my plan was to flip the days and the nights, so I could do lots of miles at night, and then in the daytime hide out in the shade or the AC. So I was trying to get to a hotel in Parker's Crossroads, and I was moving slow, and I was in so much pain, and it was very, very hot. So I had some heat exhaustion problems. I was on the phone with my brother, My brother is my best backpacking buddy. He has seen me suffer more than anybody else in the world. So when things got bad, I would call him. So I was on the phone with my brother Mark, and I was on this really long, terrible road, no shade. It was 99 degrees, but the heat index was worse. And of course, we're on road, and the road had just been retarmacked. So it was a beautiful black shiny road, but I saw it up in the distance where the pavement, changed to the brand new tarmac, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's going to be so hot. So I was walking along talking to Mark, and all of a sudden I just felt really weird. And I saw a building that it was kind of set back from the road, but it was like a business. And I said to my brother, I said, Mark, I feel really strange, and I see the first shade I've seen in a long time. I'm going to get off the phone and go sit in the shade. He said, okay. So I went over to the shade, and I laid down with my legs up on the wall because I was trying to get my feet up and my legs up as much as possible. So I would like sleep in a pike position with my feet up. So I did, and I woke up after a little while, and I thought, I think I've been asleep for a little while. It's time to get up. And I looked at my pants, and I thought, why are my pants a different color?
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it was really, they were like bright blue, and they're like a dark gray, so because I was wearing sun pants to shield my skin. So I thought, why are my pants a different color? And I was like, that's really weird. And I swung my legs down and sat up, and I could barely see. I was so dizzy. And I thought, oh no, this is not good. And I knew I was still hot. So I laid my body back down until everything stopped spinning. And after a couple of minutes, I tried to really easily sit up. And I got it sitting up, and I didn't feel very good. So um, I just kind of eased up, and took a long time just getting to a standing position. And just, I was like, I got to get to this hotel. Once I get to the hotel, I'll get inside in the AC, I'll be cool. So I started back down along the road, and I'm just moving pretty slow because of the pain and because of the heat, and just inching along. And then I saw a swimming pool up on the left. And I was like, oh, I wish I could go swim in those people's pool. I bet it's so nice. And then I realized there was a fence all around the pool and campers all around the fence. And I thought, oh, this is a campground. And then I remembered in the book, because someone had sketched out services that were along the route, and I had gotten a copy of it. And I was like, oh yeah, there's a campground, right, like an RV campground before Parker's Crossroad, which is where my hotel was, where I was headed. And I said to myself, oh my gosh, usually those RV places, they have like a little camp store. And I was like, I'm going to make a break for that. And even though it means I'll get to the hotel later, if I can go inside and sit in air conditioning for like 30 minutes, I bet it would be the smartest thing I could do right now. So I made my way into the camp store, and this really sweet lady welcomed me, and she said, hello, are you checking in? Do you have a reservation? And I said, actually, I've been walking outside, and I started feeling really bad. And I just wondered, if I bought a Coke, if I could sit in your store for 30 minutes or so. And she was like, oh, of course, of course. And she got me a Coke, and we started chatting, and she was so nice. And she was from up in New York, where my family is. And she told me how they bought the campground 4 years ago. And I got her life history, and she was so sweet. And I cannot wait to someday go and vacation at their campground, because her husband came in, and we started talking too. And they were just so wonderful and so nice. And so then I said, because the whole time I was kind of anxious to get back out and get to my hotel so I could get in a cold bath and fix my feet again. So anyhow, I said, I'm going to, if it's okay, I want to sit on your swing out there in the shade. And so just kind of transition to outside temperatures, but still in the shade, not moving, and then moving. So she wouldn't let me pay for the Coke. And I know, she's so sweet. So I went outside. So that is Parker's Crossroad RV. If anyone's ever in Middle Tennessee and you need a wonderful place to go, please go to that place. They're so fantastic. So I made my way to the road and was on my way to Parker's. And by this point, I was only 1.9 miles. I mean, I knew when I saw the pool at the RV place, I knew I had less than 2 miles. And I mean, by this point, it was like 3 o'clock. And I had hoped to get to the hotel at like 11, and the whole day was just spiraling badly. So anyhow, I was walking to the crossroad to the hotel, and two other runners passed me, and they passed me walking, but they passed me like I was sitting on the ground, and they were in a 5K. I mean, they just, I couldn't believe how much faster than me they could move. And oh, and my feet just hurt so bad and everything. I was just like, this is going so badly. I can't believe it. So I made it to the hotel at 4:40. I mean, I was out in the sun about 5 hours longer than I anticipated. And the whole point was to get into a hotel and be out of the heat. And I had wanted to be in the hotel and leave about 6 or 7 p.m. that night so I could have a really long nighttime of miles. So I got to the hotel and I took a bath, like really cold water, and then I spread out everything on the bed beside me from my pack and all, so that I would not have to get up because it hurt so bad to walk. And I iced myself down. I had one thing I had packed was gallon-sized Ziploc bags, so that if I was at a hotel, I could fill them all with ice. And I just had them all laid out on my body. And I had a toe that had a huge blister under the nail. I mean, it was, I looked in bad shape. It was really bad. So I don't know. I was like, well, okay, well, here's my problem. What can I do? I got to lower my body temperature. I got to fix this toenail. I got to fix the bottoms of my feet. I got to get some rest. I was still dizzy. I couldn't stand up. So I was like, I'm going to sleep here and wake up. And if I'm still dizzy, I can't go out and walk in the middle of the night, in this state. So I slept for a lot longer than my time clock would have allowed. So I got up and left, I think about 4. So I slept like 7 hours, which is unheard of in this race.
Oh my gosh.
And I know. So I got up about 4, and when I hit the 7:30 check-in, I was way behind where I should have been.
Mm,
So I felt better, and then we always feel better when the sun comes up, right?
of
So
course.
I felt better once the day started, and it was a really pretty morning. I got into Lexington. I turned left, and because that's like the first big turn, you turn left, and then you're headed east. Um, and people were texting me saying, "Did Jan come find you yet? What you missed the cutoff? What happened?" And I was like, "Well, how bad is it if I miss the cutoff? I'm only a couple miles behind, and I'll make it up by tonight, and I'll definitely make it up by the next morning by the 7:30 a.m. In 24 hours, I can easily make up this like 7 miles.
Sure.
So I didn't know what the process was either." And and this I think is a total God thing, because I walked by a restaurant called the Loaded Spud, and it said open at 11, and I looked at my watch and it said 10:56, and I was like, oh sweet, I'm going to go in
Mhm.
and get me a big giant baked potato and some food. And I went in, and the lady was so nice. She said, would you like to sit back here? It's a lot cooler in this room. And there's a socket I could plug in and charge all my stuff in. And she came to me and she said, we had a lot of you runners in here yesterday. If you want to take your shoes off under the table and like let your feet, get some air, that's fine. I was like, really? She said, of course. And she said, yesterday I had someone that asked for a big bowl so he could wash his clothes. So he and I washed his clothes out back and hung them up to dry. This lady was so sweet. So this is what the angels are like going through the towns. They know we're coming, and they are like, what can we do to help you? How can we make your journey, better for you? How can we help you be successful in your goal? So I sat there and I was eating my heart out on this gigantic potato that had barbecue and chili and cheese and sour cream all. It was so good, and a gigantic Coke, which they did not even let get half empty for me. So I was like, I shouldn't be spending this time here, but I was like, well, I've been out in the sun for a couple hours. I'm in the air conditioning. So I left the potato place and I was full and happy and I felt great. And about 30 minutes later, the meat wagon pulled up to me. So Jan is driving the meat wagon, and she said, did you call for a ride? And when you want to quit, you call Jan, and she comes and picks you up. She drives you all the way back to the start line, and you're done. So she pulled up to me and she said, did you call for a ride? And I said, no, absolutely, I did not call for a ride. And she said, well, you missed the cutoff. And I was like, oh. I said, well, I know, but I feel better now, and I'm out here, I'm getting the miles done. And then there was confusion on if I was allowed to keep going, or I wasn't quite sure what she was telling me, and I wasn't quite sure what options I had. But I'm not quitting. I'm not done. I'm gonna make up these miles today. I had a terrible day yesterday. I had to fix something, and she was like, well, I said, I know I was behind the cutoff. She said, yeah, you missed it. And I said, well, what does that mean? Is there like, can I make the miles up? She said, no, you're out of the race. And I was like, what? And she said it just like that. And I thought, oh my gosh. And I was like, I am like barely miles behind it, and I know there's people behind me, and I was just trying to think like, what happens? And she said, well, you got to get in the van now because you're behind. I said, I don't want to get in the van. I want to finish this race. And she said, okay, well, if you refuse to get in the van, if you call later and need to get picked up, we can't come pick you up. If you refuse to get in the van, you're done. And I was like, oh my gosh. So by this time, my friend Trish had to drop out because she fell and had gotten an injury.
Mm.
And I thought to myself, one, I'm going to finish this race. And two, if something happens to me and this van will come back for me, I'll either call Trish or call the world's most expensive Uber, but I'm not getting in this van. So, so I said, okay, well, I lost 7 hours yesterday. And by the point of where I should be right now, I'm 3 hours past the cutoff for the mileage. I said, so I lost 7 hours, but I've already made up 4 of them like this morning. So I'm going to make them up. And she said, let me call Laz and Carl and see. And I was like, oh my gosh. So she said, you keep walking because you don't need to be standing here holding still. So I was like, okay. So I start walking, right? And then I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? So she circled back around a couple minutes later and said, all right, if she said, we can't come back and get you if you're out of the, if you're out behind the cutoffs. And I said, well, she said, if you're behind where the cutoff and then you call for us to come get you. And that makes sense. Think about it. It's a 314-mile range of the race, right?
Yep.
Once we're at the cutoff, this I think was supposed to be 94. Once the checkpoint is 94, the race range has shrunk from 94 to 314. So if someone is hanging back at mile 60, they can't drive back to mile 60 and get them, because some people are dropping up at mile, let's say like 260. So they're not going to drive from mile 260 to 60. So I said, I totally understand that, but you are not going to have to come back and get me. And I said, well, what if I get to tonight's checkpoint on time? Like I make up those miles. That's my plan. And she just looked at me. She said, that's a lot of miles. And I was like, I can do it. I know how many miles it is. I know what I can do. And I remember just standing there feeling so kind of helpless and frustrated. And I had the thought in my mind, what do I say to convince her that I know I can do this? And my next thought was, there's nothing you can say, because she doesn't know you. She doesn't know your history. She doesn't know your drive or what your motivation is. Every year she sees runners that are struggling on the first 3 days, and you look like one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And my next thought was, there's nothing you can say. You just have to show her. That's the only way you can prove it. And I said, if I catch up to the race and I'm back in the realm of the race, can I be re-entered? And, she said, if you catch up to tonight's checkpoint, we can ask Carl and he'll consider it. And I'm like, what the heck? It was really, really fear-inducing, I guess. And I was like, okay, well, you drive off and I'm going to go do these miles. And I had to get to the 110-mile mark by 7:30 that night. And I'm at 97 and it's like 1 o'clock. I don't know what time it is. So I had a lot to do,
Mm-hmm.
So it's very, very hot. But this is one of the best God things I think happened on that race for me. I stopped at that potato bar when I didn't realize that there was an issue, and I got cooled off and I ate. Everything got charged up. So once I had that meeting with Jan, which was like 30 minutes later, I took off running. And if I had gotten this news about you have to make it to 110, you don't have any makeup time. You have to, then if I had tried to move when I was so depleted, I think it would have been a bad scene. But everything was topped off. All my injury stores were great. And I just remember saying, thank you, God, for letting this be the situation when I have to start moving really fast. So I am running. When I say running, I mean, I'm jogging as hard as I can. And it's like a 17 or 18-minute mile pace. So imagine a turtle that got really scared and it's like, oh, I better move. And then it starts inching along. So anyhow, I'm just getting as fast as I can down this road, and it is so hot, and it's really, I don't know. So I'm a little panicked too. And then something really, I didn't expect this to happen in this race. I guess I kind of did expect a lot of something to happen, but I was running along and I was near the 100-mile mark. And, it's day 3. And I'm like, goodness gracious, in a 100-miler, no one takes 3 days to do a 100-miler. And I was like, what is going on here? What is happening? And I thought how I had come into this thinking, I've prepared as best as I can. I've prepared physically and mentally and emotionally. And now I'm in this boat where, I'm technically out of the race and my name got blacked out. So everyone at home was like, Julie's blacked out. Like, she's out. Like, she dropped. What happened? And so my phone starts blowing up. And I just called my brother and I said, Mark, this is a situation. I have to get to mile 110 by 7:30, and I'm just going to turn my phone off because I can't answer all these questions from everyone saying what's happened, blah, blah, blah. I said, just tell mom and everybody I'm fine, and I'll talk to everybody after 7:30. So I just start running as fast as I can, and I'm so panicked. And, it's physically hard and it's hot and my feet hurt so bad and I'm trying to run on them. And so then I just kind of broke down and I started crying, and it all kind of overwhelmed me. And I don't mean I was crying. I mean, I was like weeping and like wailing and I like
Oh.
totally lost it. And it was like every exhale, it was just like, I just let it all out. And then I would like shudder and breathe in, and then it would just come out again. And I just thought, man, I thought if I came in to this race and I was really strong, it would all work out. And I was like, I don't understand how to do this race at all. I guess it's not a day and a mileage point. It's like every 12 hours you got to be on. So it I don't know. And I just thought, okay, well, however this race needs to be run, I submit to this race and however it needs to be. And I don't know. I just had kind of a reckoning with that race. That race was like, you thought you could come and do this and you thought you knew how to do this. And once I said, okay, I'll just hold on for dear life and go along for the ride. And so after that, it was a turning point. And I thought about that a lot because it was so much emotion. And about 2 days later, I kind of had the analogy come to mind of I was like trying to paddle upstream, and you can imagine like, I don't know, a little mouse and a little leaf trying to like row upstream, and they're pushing against the current as hard as they can, and they have to get, and they just can't make it. And it's just too powerful for them. And then they just flip around and they're like, I'll just go this way instead. And then the current just carries them downstream and they get wherever they need to go effortlessly. And I mean, it was purely like just let it flow. So after that, I just kind of tried to go with the flow of things, and it got so much better after that. I got to one of the next aid stations, which was a middle school, and they had stuff set up for us. And a lady named Diane was there, and I really, really like Diane. She is one of the mega vets. She was so kind to me on the first day, the day before the race started, when we all had to ride the bus together. She was so welcoming and so nice to all the rookies, all the newbies, that she just really made a difference for how my race started. Anyhow, she was at the school and I was still really emotional. And she said, Julie, you're here. Did the van come for you? And I flung my arms around her and I started crying. I said, no, they tried to make me get in the van and I refused to get in. And she was laughing and she said, good for you. We didn't get in that van either. She said, we all have to make it to 110 by 7:30. So let's get moving. And I was like, oh gosh. And then I realized there are other people in the same boat as me. And I was like, okay, well, if Diane is here at this time, she's going to make it. And if I stay with Diane, I'm going to make it. So there was another girl with her too. And long story short, we just ran our little fannies off. It was so hot that day. And I had an ice bandana on my back of my neck. I was trying to shove ice down my sleeves. I was trying, every time I got a cold bottle of water, and there were two angels that met us on the road and gave us stuff, I would hold them against my cheeks or hold them against my neck or hold them against my wrists. I mean, I was trying so hard to stay cool because I knew I needed to move faster than I would have been. So I got kicked out of the race and I got myself back in. When I got to 110 that night, I got there about an hour early, and I took a huge screenshot of my dot and the mile marker, and I circled the timestamp and I sent it to Jan, the lady that drives the meat wagon. I sent it to her and she was like, good for you. Send it to Carl. And then Carl said, you're back in the race. Good job. And then was when Trish showed up and she said, do you want me to crew you for the rest of the race? And I said, yes. I I really admire all these people who do it screwed, and I really thought that that would not be a problem for me, but the time, I don't know. I don't know. And I still am kind of thinking like, gosh, how was that so hard? Because I go backpacking. I don't have aid stations or angels or anything, but man, it's just so hot out there. It's a completely different world. That setting is just so hard. So I got back in, and then I switched to crude, and everything immediately became easier. So
And what did crude look like? So before you're kind of relying on yourself and the restaurants and gas stations and such, but how often could Trish see you, and what was the plan moving forward?
Yep, there weren't too many rules. So so she could see me often, which meant the first thing that meant was I could empty my pack. So I took out all of my stuff that I needed for sleeping. I took out all of my extra stuff. I took out my kind of bigger long-term safety things and first aid things. And I pack heavy.
How
And
heavy do you think your pack was?
my pack was almost 15 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
I know, right? Coming from a backpacking world, I was like, whoa, 15 pounds. This is great. I can run with this thing. But it's way too heavy for a journey run. But you pack your fears,
Of course.
and
Yeah.
and I had a lot of fears. And I had a lot of food too. I took out all the food that was in my pack, and I was laying it on the bumper, and there was so much food. And I took a picture of it, and I sent it to my brother, and I was like, Mark, were we starving as kids? Like, why do I hoard food like this? So anyhow, my pack got so much lighter. And then,
What pack were you using out of curiosity for a load
yeah,
that big?
great question. I was using the Solomon Advanced Skin, the 12 liter.
Wow. Holy cow.
Yeah, but then I also had a REI like fanny pack,
Okay.
and this thing is the bomb. It has a big pack, a big pouch in the middle, and then behind the pouch is a little slip where I could put my phone, and then there's a drink holder on one side and a little zip pouch on the side. So between these two, and I have Trish to thank for this because she got this pack, and I was like, "Oh, that pack looks great." So I debated between taking my smallest backpacking pack and my largest running vest, and I really didn't know which way I wanted to go. But once I added that fanny pack, which gave me, I don't know, maybe 3 more liters, then I felt really comfortable taking the vest. So probably about 15 liters worth of space. But once I emptied my vest, it rode different.
Yeah.
It had been digging into my back, and I had chafing really bad on my back. Once I took weight out of the vest, I could move more easily. Everything was easier, and my back wasn't getting agitated. I mean, the difference. I mean, it was so luxurious after being after becoming crude. It was really really nice.
How much water were you carrying? Like, what did that look like?
When I was screwed, I was carrying about 3 bottles, and it would be like a 23-ounce smart water bottle with a flip
Okay.
top, and another like 12-ounce bottle, and um, I could wedge a small Gatorade bottle in the pocket, the little waistband pocket of that fanny pack.
Hmm.
So I had about 3 bottles all the time, and some would be straight water, and some would be Gatorade or Under Armour or something at the store, whatever I could find.
Sure.
And when I was crewed, I also I had something else in the zip pocket in case I needed it too. But once Trish was with me, it was a lot easier to go lighter. So gosh, it
Yeah.
was fantastic.
So she joined you around mile 110.
Yep. So I
Um,
did a third of it screwed and the last 2/3 crewed.
and that's, like I said, there's not many rules, so and that's all within the rules to kind of switch mid race. Is there a difference by finishing screwed, or is it just an honorary title?
Yeah, just honorary. It is listed. I mean, and as soon as I switched to crude, the next checkpoint it had me listed as crude. So it's certainly very transparent who's doing it how, but there isn't like a different category like first place crude and first place screwed. And I think the first 4 finishers were all crude, which makes sense because you can move a lot faster when you're carrying less and when all your water and food is provided. So and Trish did a fantastic job. Number one, Trish was so generous. We had driven out from North Carolina together, and the plan was to drive home together. So Trish had her fall, and her leg got completely scraped up. And then she got kind of stuck out in no man's land where she was, there weren't enough water places to get in the heat of the day. So she just really got kind of caught out bad. So Trish dropped near Dresden, which is towards the beginning. And then she said, I'm going to hang around if you need me. If you need me to crew you, I will. And I thought, oh my gosh, thank goodness she's not telling me, hey, I'm going back to North Carolina because I'm done, 11 day or, I'm done 7 days before I thought I would. So I'm not going to hang around her week. So she said, I'll hang around and crew you if you want. And I said, okay, well, let's see how it goes. And then when she was there to crew me, I was like, oh, thank goodness. So she would scout out places up ahead that would be safe for me to sleep, which was really important. Because if it didn't land right to be at a hotel or somewhere that we were welcome to sleep, that was, I needed sleep, and I was really nervous about being in a safe place. And then she, of course, was there for water and stuff, so I could carry less. And then by the end of it, I dropped my vest and just carried my fanny pack with 1 or 2 waters in it and a little bit of food. So it got so much easier. And I honestly, I felt so guilty for all my friends that were still screwed, and they were doing so great. I was so amazed by them. These screwed runners, oh my gosh, they're just phenomenal. But I needed to drop to crewed because I was afraid I wouldn't make it. I would have loved to have finished screwed, but I would rather, I really wanted to get a finish. And so I needed to go. I needed to make that choice. So
Yeah, right.
there you have it.
You had now you had an hour cushion ahead of the cutoff. How close did you stay to cutoffs? Did you start gaining time over the next 200 miles?
Yes, the hope was that I would get way ahead. We wanted to flip and do nights. So our aim was for me to get ahead enough that I could sleep in the daytime and run all night. So for the next about 3 nights, we kind of put that plan into effect. And I did not do well at the nights. From about 2 to 5, I was just a zombie. And I would bank miles in the day, and we'd think, okay, this was a good day. We're going to get even more ahead at night because we can move better at night. So, and then I would lose all the miles. So it was so demoralizing to be about 4 miles ahead at the 7:30 p.m. check-in, and then to just barely make the 7:30 a.m. check-in. So finally we said one day, the nights are not working. And Trish said, your body is used to being asleep at night. We need to let you get a bigger sleep at night. And then, we can, it was just going better in the day. I don't know why. I mean, it was daylight. I didn't have to have headlamps. And while I don't say I felt unsafe in this race, um, in the daylight, there's just so much you don't worry about,
Yeah.
running solo as a female. So we decided, and I had texted you and a whole bunch of people and got opinions on, what do you think? Lots of naps versus one solid bank of sleep. And so we kind of got ahead enough that I could get a long break of sleep that one night. And then once we flipped it, it worked so much better. And then after that, I started really, and I never got ahead of the cutoffs very much. I wish I could have been more than one whole checkpoint ahead the whole time just to have that buffer and not run stressed. But I didn't have that until the very last check off. But that's okay because I could see my progress that we were getting a little bit ahead every time. So being crewed, that helped. And then us figuring out how my body needed to respond to this type of race, that helped too.
Was there something more to finishing than just wanting to say, you had finished? Was there something deeper that, you were thinking about? I talked about in High Lonesome, like if my daughter was not going to be at that last point where she could run in with me, I don't know if I would really have made it because
Oh,
it was it got to the point I was just so sick, and I was sick of being sick that
yes.
I was just like, this is miserable. I'm not having fun. But I knew this little girl was waiting to run this last 4 miles
Oh,
of this 100 miler with me. And I said, I got to get to that point, no matter how I
yeah.
feel, like that's the point, is getting to her because it's not just about me here. It's, it's my family giving up the time, that I got to go out to Colorado for 2.5 weeks to acclimate, and
Yeah.
there's so many
Jeez.
things behind it. Friends coming to crew and pace me, so
Yeah.
there was so much more that kept me moving forward to get that finish. But if I didn't have that, I don't know. Like if I had been solo, like like you said, if I had been screwed, in other words, then
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know if I really would have made it. It was challenging to, to press on. So if you think back, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first thing I want to say is, do you even acclimate, bro? When I heard you were going out there for 2 weeks, I was like, oh, that's perfect. That's great. And one of my answers to that question is the same thing. There were so many people that were sending me encouragement from home, and my family had all started a big group chat, and my mom would send something out to the group, and I said, all of these people want to know what's going on, but I don't want to really receive, 1,000 messages I have to answer every night. So let's tell everybody that wants to be on the thing, they'll be on this. And my mom was sending out updates every day and pictures that I would send her. So them, and I couldn't believe how many people wanted to be on this. Like the week that we were at the beach and I was running the beach mountain to sea trail,
Mhm.
the people in the house, which was a lot of extended cousins, they were all like, "What are you doing? And what race is this?" And then they were like, "Well, when that race happens, let us know how we can track you." And so there were so many people that were wishing me well. And then my really really close friends that were like when I was having a really bad time and I was so in so much pain, they just kept sending me a message saying, "I love you. I'm proud of you." So I didn't want to let them down. And my daughter, of course, she is, daughters are something, aren't they?
Hmm.
Daughters and sons, they're really something. But my daughter had said a couple weeks ago, when I was just talking over the plans of when I was leaving, when I was coming back, and she was going to go up to New York and stay with her grandma. She said, "You're not doing Vol State next year, are you?" And I said, "No, honey, just once." So I was like, I have to finish because I can't come back and and do this. And I never take for granted the time that I am allowed to go out and do this do this thing. Sometimes it's just I get to go out for an hour and do my afternoon run. And sometimes I get to go for a weekend to a 100 miler. But this and when I went to CT22, we didn't know how long it was going to take, but we knew it'd be over a week. And this was the biggest one yet to go for a 10-day race. And there's 1.5 days travel on each end. It was over 2 weeks. And I thought, I need to make sure I leave it all out here and give, every single ounce of 100%. And it's so nice of everyone to just say, yeah, go do your thing, go do your dream. And, leave the mom duties, leave the cat duties, the teacher duties are done because it's summer. I don't know how often, especially as an adult, we get a chance for this many days to just focus on one thing of our own desire, of our own passion. And I really really was conscious of that every single second. And then on the flip side of that, I mean, I was having a blast. I was having so much fun. And I stopped somewhere, I think it was an Angel House, and they said, "Are you sorry you signed up for this?" And I was really surprised because I immediately answered without thinking. I said, "No, no way, there's nowhere else I'd rather be right now." I mean, I know that sounds really corny, but I was having so much fun.
Good.
I mean, there was one morning that it was just so beautiful. The sunrise was great, and I was going by this beautiful cornfield, and the sun came up over the side of it, and it was the first day we got towards the mountains, and I don't know. I saw so many of my favorite birds on this trek. So there were a lot of things that drove me to the finish, and I really wanted that whole business with almost missing 110. I wanted that to have been, I don't know, rectified, or like to, I said there's only one way to prove to these people that I can do this, and that's by
Yeah.
doing it. So
Right. Right.
I don't know. I mean, there's so much, and I'm sure I'll be unpacking that answer for, that question for a long time, but
Yeah.
it was great.
Uh, Can you talk a little bit about trying to stay present? Because I imagine when you do your 7:30 a.m. and then you have a 7:30 p.m. check-in, and you have a mileage goal that you have to achieve, that can be very overwhelming. It can be like very looming, right? Like
Yes.
over the course of your day. So
Yes.
what kind of things did you do to kind of stay present and to, accept the fact that you're in the mile you're in, and, you had to take care of yourself at present in order to get to that 7:30 p.m. check-in?
Yeah, good question, because I would work so hard to get to a 7:30, and then at 7:31 it's like, "Oh my goodness, I have 11 hours and 59 minutes to get to the next one." And it just kind of loomed over you. But the part of my answer is in your question. You just stay in the mile you're in. And I mean, that's good advice for every ultra. I remember working really, really hard one day to get to the hotel I was going to get to, and I was going to rest there for a couple hours. And resting, of course, was stressful because you're eating up your time. Um, but I wanted to get to the hotel, and like it was a relief to get to the hotel. And I thought, gosh, in 1 mile I'll be there. I'll get to take a cold bath. I'll get to, clean up a little bit, rinse my clothes out, wash my clothes in the sink, and rest. And then I thought, oh my gosh, but then I've got to do it all again. And I was like, then I have to just keep doing it over and over. And I said, don't think that. All you got to think about right now is you have 1 more mile, and then you get a really wonderful break. And when I would take the breaks, if you eat and you rest, you feel better. So, and I had heard the Jan, the meat wagon lady, when someone calls her and says, "I want to quit, come pick me up," she says, she says, "Okay, well, I'll be there in 8 hours because I'm way at the end of the course. So you go get something to eat, wait for me, take a nap, and then I'll be along." So then she calls them back in like 5 hours, and they've eaten and taken a nap, and they say, "Oh, I feel pretty good now, and I'm going to keep going." And she's like, "Okay, if you're sure." And apparently this is her ploy, because when she rests, you feel better. So I don't know. I
Right.
have this image. This lady Jan was really amazing, and I have this image of her sitting a block away, looking at the runners, saying, "I'll be there in 8 hours. You go take a nap and food." And then she sees them start walking, and then she drives off. So, but yeah, it was interesting when I realized how drastic those 7:30s were. It was not like a race. It was not like there's a cutoff at mile 63 in the 100 miler. It just never stopped.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
by day three, you're 3 days in, you're exhausted, but you have 7 more days of this.
Right. Right.
Just
At,
stay
at
in the
this
mile.
at the same time, did you have any celebrations? For instance, like, yeah, I made the 200 and whatever mile cutoff. Did you have time to celebrate that? Like, did you acknowledge that? How did you process that?
Yeah, I definitely did. Those were the really sweet moments. I came to Vol State with 5 goals, and the first goal was to not quit in the first 3 days. So when I made it 3 days, I was really happy. Although the fourth day was Jan pulling me over saying I was out, and so day four was really stressful and crazy and
Mhm.
emotional. But I had made that first goal. The next goal that I wanted to make was a time goal and a distance goal. So my when I did CT22, the time, which was recorded everywhere, I love this time. It was 6 hours and sorry, 10. It was the 6 days and 16 hours and 29 minutes. So I wanted to pass that because that would be the longest I had ever been running. I mean, I've done backpacking trips longer than 7 days,
Sure.
but my running, like a running adventure, that was the longest. So that was my second goal, was to make the time PR. My next goal was to make a running distance PR, which was once I hit 184, every single step was the farthest I'd ever run. And then the next goal was 200, because I'm not saying I've thought about doing a 200 miler, but they're out there, and the 200 milers, the new 100 miler. So I've always wondered, well, how long would it take me to run 200? I don't think I could even do it in 4 days, and I can't. So I wanted to see though, how long it would take me to do the 200 miles, and then of course the last one was to finish. So it was very exciting to hit all of those and to have progress and to I mean, and the way the map is set out, it's like segment one goes straight down, segment two, the next 100 miles goes straight across, and then the last 100 miles goes straight down. So on my little map, to see myself be on the second leg, it was it was visually astounding. So there was a lot to cheer me on along the way. Um, I mean, the course just gives so much. So there was a lot to rejoice in all throughout the course.
That's cool. That is very cool. You mentioned, you spoke with your brother Mark at times where it got really hard, and you messaged obviously with mom. Did you talk to your kids at all during this race?
I did. I messaged them every morning and every night because I wanted to make sure I had contact with them. I didn't just disappear. And so I tried to call them, but they were playing with their cousins, playing with their grandma. So it was okay if I didn't, if I didn't get to make contact verbally with
Yeah.
them. But I did message them every single night and morning because I mean I love getting to go out and do this, but that's the most important thing is my family, and
Yeah.
so yeah, it's because of them I get to be out there. So I definitely wanted to have a contact base string with them, that I took with me every day. So yeah, that was good.
Cool. Um, Anything that when you think back on, you're like, if I were to ever do this again, which promised your daughter it's not going to be next year. Um, but looking back at it, if you were to plan for a future race or just a note to a future participant, was there some words of wisdom that you might impart?
Um, as far as what I would do for myself, I think I would try to, and it sounds so simple to say it, but and then you get out there and everything feels different. I would try to just run and then drop and sleep and then run and drop and sleep and run and drop and sleep, which if you don't feel comfortable with doing that, it's not really feasible for you. It won't work for you. I think I got hung up on if I can make it to this hotel, I can sleep in there. But that didn't always lay out well for how the day went or how I was feeling. And like that one day, I stayed out in the sun way too long because I wasn't at the hotel I had set as my goal.
Right.
So you got to be so flexible on these things. So maybe, I don't know, just kind of like that analogy I had about just going with the flow, just letting the race guide me. I think I would try to do a better job of that because that race, I don't know, I just feel like that race loves its runners and it provides for them and it cares for them. And I think if I had let it do a better job of that, I think I could have fared more easily, more comfortably. I don't know.
If we look back at day one, because a lot went on day one, you got blisters like 8 miles in, which
Yeah.
is like
How does
simply
that even happen?
right, right. So if you reflect back on that, do you have any thoughts about like what transpired, what was going on that happened so quickly? Any thoughts on that?
I think, and people had told me this race is just so hot. In fact, two girls that I really love and admire that I was in contact with during the race because they're both Tennessee girls and have been in Vol State. They were like, this race just really sucks the heat out of you. And I read it and I'm like, yeah, I know this is a hot race. I did heat training in North Carolina. It's really, really, soupy and swampy and humid there. I know it's a hot race. It's a different kind of hot.
Yeah,
It,
yeah.
and I think running on the hot asphalt. I mean, I was running on asphalt to train because I was mimicking my race. I was trying to simulate my race environment, but that hot asphalt, it's melting your shoes. Your feet are sweating differently. So everything is going differently inside your shoes. Your body's reacting differently because it's so hot. Your water intake has to be adjusted because it's just a different kind of heat. It's so much hotter than you thought. I don't, and I can't pinpoint yet. I'd like to talk with more vets because yeah, how did I have such a bad first day? I mean, I think the first day I wrote down a whole bunch of stats of like how far I went each day. I mean, I don't think I did 20 some days, 20 some miles before my first hotel stay that first night. And I was beat. And that's ridiculous. Yeah, I did 28 miles by 7:30. I don't know. I mean, that's not even 50K, and it's supposed to be 50K a day. So
Right.
I don't know if I can answer that. I
Yeah.
can't give you a satisfactory
Uh,
answer right now because I'm still trying to figure that out
yeah.
myself.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, it's you had mentioned, you'd had some skin issues, heat rash and such. You had been working on your gear in order to try to help with that. How did that work out? You want to talk about any specific things that you used and how it worked or how it didn't work?
Yes, for sure. So, I have gotten a heat rash for years, and it got so bad at a number of races that I went to doctors about it, and my primary care doctor diagnosed it as heat urticaria, basically heat rash or runner's rash or hiker's rash. I went to an allergist because they were like, maybe, you're allergic to something, and nothing really panned out from that. And I went to a dermatologist. The dermatologist gave me a topical ointment that other people that suffer from this have also used that has helped. So, and I don't know what it's made of. It's a compound that they made up. So I can't say it's called this. Go get it if you need it. And also two other runners here in North Carolina that I know have real bad heat rash. Um, they take a 24-hour Allegra about every 12 hours. I have gotten on a prescription. I think it's basically a prescription Claritin, but it's loratadine. I was taking that a lot. And when I was having trouble in my training, I called my doctor and said, "Can I double up that dosage?" And he was like, "No, you can't double up that dosage." And I was like, well, I need to do something because this isn't working. Um, but when I combined my loratadine and started taking that Allegra and using that ointment, it kept it from getting so bad where it got to the painful stage. I did have my first 3 or 4 days of Vol State. My skin, it got red and irritated and rose up, but it didn't break out in hives and welts like it does when it's really bad. And I was really glad because I was afraid that would be something that could take me out. And I really wanted to go to Vol State and just test myself and not have an added affliction of, the skin. But I also, for gear, I was trying arm sleeves and sun hoodies, and I tried some leg sleeves. And the leg sleeves, I could run in them and move in them really great. And so I wore them on a 19-mile run at the beach, and I was like, okay, well, maybe this is something I could wear in Ball State. This would be great. This was like 3 weeks out. And I got done with the run, and where it like grips onto your legs, where it kind of holds it up, it was completely broken out. My skin was in terrible shape, and it took days to recover. Meanwhile, I was still running on that. So I was like, well, I can't wear these. I had I wanted to wear compression shorts because someone was like, compression shorts are so great for this because you can sleep in them, they're comfortable, blah, blah, blah. So I ran a 50-miler in compression shorts the second week of June, and took them off to pee, and my skin was just all broken out underneath it because it was too hot. I couldn't breathe. So I was like, well, I can't wear these at Ball State. I'm going to have to wear some loose breathing shorts. So I don't know. I was really panicked. I mean, I did a lot of heat simulation. I ran the Aruba Marathon in June and then ran a hot 50-miler in June. And I had problems at both of those. And it was getting down to the wire. I had 2-3 weeks left to go. So I went to an REI and I said, I need to buy some SPF clothing, like as if I was going to walk in the desert. And this really, really wonderful sales girl at the Greensboro REI, she gave me a whole bunch of SPF pants, and I tried on a number of them. And some of them she gave me were like yoga leggings, and she was like, they're SPF, and they weren't going to work. And I remember I pulled on a pair of pants, and I could just feel all the air around my legs because they were like circulating the air. And I just remember I pulled them on and I stood up and I was so happy. I thought, oh my gosh, these pants could work. And I almost started crying. I was like, I think I can run Vol State. These pants can work. And oh my gosh, they're fantastic. They are Mountain Hardware. So, yep. Yeah, they're fantastic. So thank goodness I found some pants I could wear. And I did wear them every single day that I was out until about day 8. On day 8, it was really overcast. And at night, I would wear shorts and a tank top. And at the daytime, I would wear long pants and long sleeves. And I know, and I looked ridiculous. But that's how bad this sun stuff is for me. I was
Yeah.
training in them around my neighborhood, and all my neighbors stopped me and said, "Are you going to Arabia?" Or, I mean, they all were like, "Why are you dressed like this, walking around the neighborhood at noon?" But I really, I mean, whatever it took, I wanted to try to figure out as many variables and control all my
Yep.
controllables.
Right. Right. And our communications seemed to become more frequent as the finish line drew closer. You were
You
getting
got a
so
lot of
close.
a lot of distressed bad messages from me at one point, didn't you?
Yeah, yes. But we were getting closer, and we were just trying to keep you positive, and um I know you're smelling that finish line. You're like, it's just, this much, and I just have to do, a few more miles. Um,
Yeah.
but as it drew closer, um, you know, what what thoughts kind of did you have time to reflect on everything you had gone through to get to that point, or were you really just focused on getting to the finish by that point?
I think when you're moving as slowly as I was moving, you have time to think about everything. So I did think, and I got really sad that it was almost over. And this happens a lot on big adventures. You're so excited it's almost over, and you're tired and you're dirty, and but I was so grateful. I couldn't believe it came together. I couldn't believe so many problems were able to be resolvable. I couldn't believe I got crewed, that Trish was there. I mean, Trish is so amazing, and just loving and selfless, and she took care of so much stuff. I mean, then she was taking care of that dog for the last day and a half, so there was just so much that she did.
Yeah.
And I don't, it was in some ways hard for me to switch to crude, but I remember I had a thought of, when I go to 100 miler, it's not unusual for everyone to bring a crew and bring
Yep.
pacers and bring people to help them. And that's for 100 miles.
Yep.
So why is it weird that I want to ask for help for 200 miles? Um,
300
so
miles.
yeah, exactly. So she did a great job. So I mean, I thought about her so much and how wonderful she is and how lucky I was. And she loves the race and loves the atmosphere, and understands the race. And it's not like just getting a run club buddy to come with you, because it's quite a different race, and she already knew the race. So that was so fortunate for me. I was so lucky. Um,
Yeah.
the last climb is really, really terrible. So it's so bad. I stopped like 3 times in the last 11 miles. And one of them was, well, another thing I enjoyed so much was, I mean, I was just out there. I could do whatever I wanted. Whenever I was tired, I'd lay down and sleep. Whenever I was hungry, I'd eat something. And it didn't matter what I ate. Like in the last 11 miles, I passed a Dollar General. And someone had said, "That's your last Dollar General. That's your last resupply for the whole way to the finish. So go in there and make sure you get your water, whatever you need." So I went in and I was going to get myself an ice cream to celebrate. I'm on the last day, and I couldn't decide which kind of ice cream. So I just got two. And so I ate two ice creams, and I'm walking out the store. And then, like 20 minutes later, I felt really sick because I'm eating hot ice cream in the sun. So I went to a church and laid on a picnic table, and I closed my eyes, and the breeze was blowing. And I was like, I'll just lay here in the breeze until I feel a little better. And I opened my eyes, and it had been an hour, and I was like, I should probably get a move on. I'd love to have a finish in the daylight, and Trisha's down at the hotel waiting for me. I was like, I should get up and get moving. And it's just so pleasant. I mean, there's no place in my life where I get to just move that freely and that easily. So I kind of didn't want the race to end. It's
Yeah.
just it's a
Yep.
beautiful existence out there.
It
And
is.
then going up the mountain, it got really hard, and so I had to stop twice just because I was out of breath and my heart rate, and it was just so hard and that kind of thing. But so the finish is amazing. The finish is at a farm, and the farm has been sold, but the new owners said the race could still finish there this year. And then the owners were also there to view the finish, and I mean, they were so fun and so nice. They are the best people I've ever met. And they were like, this race is really something. So I hope the race has a future there, and they're the new owners, and but they were so fantastic. In fact, they're the ones that drove me back down, and we had so much fun. We were laughing all the way down the mountain. So the finish is really, it's beautiful. You get to run down this beautiful lane that has these gorgeous fences and these trees on both sides, and then you go through the gate. Then you run along a soybean field, and then you go into the woods and you run on the first trail you've seen in 312 miles. And then you spit out into a little clearing, and then the rock is there, and the view of the giant lake that you just ran by, 2,000 feet below or something. I mean, the finish is so beautiful. And then, of course, you're done. And I mean, every finish feels good. And I'll never, ever forget this one. Then you get to sit on the throne and talk with Laz and Carl. And yeah, and Carl's wife, sorry, Laz's wife was there, and the family that has bought the farm, and Jeff Stafford was there. And it was just so much fun sitting around. And they ask you, what your thoughts were, what your highs and lows were, what your best moments were. It's the best finish. It's really, really beautiful. So getting to reflect on all of that was really wonderful. And I was sad to see it all end, although I was so glad to stop running. My feet hurt so bad.
Oh, um, one last story, and then I'm gonna let you go. You mentioned the dog. We have to hear
Yes.
the story about the dog.
All right. So the last morning, we had slept at a church under the awning of a church, and that was at mile 281. So we woke up, and I started running at 1, and very shortly, this was the only time I did it, but I called Trish and I said, "Could you come drive really close to me?" There was a car that was doing something really weird, and the guy had, I don't know what he's doing. He turned right beside me, but he couldn't see me. He turned the other way, and then he got out of the car and started yelling, and I don't know. He was just kind of weirding me out. I don't know who he's fighting with, but anyhow, I asked her if she kind of hug close nearby so that if anything weird happened, she was just near her. And then there were a lot of dogs, so she was kind of checking out where all these dogs were. They were all unleashed, really mean, really aggressive. Um, so then about the fourth dog that she said, "There's a dog up here. It's a little black dog." And I saw it, and it didn't bark at me. And then we went a little ways more, and the dog was there again, and it was the same dog. So the dog was just kind of following me, and it ran with me for quite a while. And then there were no more dogs bothering me. So this dog was running with me and kind of clearing the dog path out. And then Trish fed it, which of course then it was a whole different game. So anyhow, the dog ate from the food, and then she was like, "I'm going to try to drive up way ahead and get away from the dog so it can't catch up to me, and because it's got to stay here and we've got to move on." So I'm running, and Trish is way up ahead, and I see something streak by me in the darkness, and I just barely catch this black shape running by me as fast as it can with its white tip of its tail showing and its little eyes looking at me. And I was like, "That's that same dog." So when I get up to Trish, the dog is there with her. So she kept trying to drive up farther ahead faster to lose the dog, but the dog kept chasing her. So anyhow, this dog ran with us for 8 miles, and Trish had fed it, so it was not letting Trish out of its sight. The dog cleared out all the bad dogs. I got to the car one time, and the dog was sitting there with her, of course. And I said, "Can I have those leftover biscuits that I only ate half of at breakfast?" She said, "Oh, I gave them to the dog." And I was like, she also was like, "That pizza that was left over, I gave it to the dog too." And I was like, what am I supposed to eat? Anyhow, this dog was so sweet. So at one of the stops, she said, "I keep trying to ask it if it wants to get in the car. I keep trying to get it in the car, and it wouldn't get in the car." So we were there was a trailhead that came out on the course. And so there was a little parking thing there. So we had pulled over, and she had set out the chair for me to sit in. And then it started raining, and it started raining really, really hard. And I was like, "Oh, this is going to be miserable." It was very dark. It was middle of the night. So anyhow, it started raining real hard, and that dog hopped right in the car. So I ran up the rest of the mountain. And when I got to the top of the mountain, there's a landmark there. It's a little convenience store. It's called Mountain Mart. So when I got to Mountain Mart, the dog was in the car asleep, And I went into the Mountain Mart, used the restroom, and came out and slept for an hour on the sidewalk in front of the store. And the dog was asleep in the car. It was happy. I got a nap. I was happy. It was daylight, hopefully for the last day. So Trish was happy. So then she started putting out lost dog ads on the local Facebook pages for rescue and the city that the dog had come from, because it ran to the next city with us by this point. Anyhow, when I got down to the hotel in Kimball, which is kind of home base, and that's at mile 300, the dog was still with her. And we were just trying to figure out what the dog was going to do. So she was like, I can't take it home. I have two dogs. And I was like, this dog is pretty special, going 8 miles with me in the middle of the night, protecting me from all the dogs. And I said, well, let's just let it stay with us tonight. And then in the morning, we'll try to figure out, how to get it home, or, what to do with it. So anyhow, it slept in the hotel with us that night, and it's a really, really sweet dog. We took it to a shelter. It is not chipped. We didn't know what to do with it, so we brought it home with us to North Carolina, and we are still watching the boards where all of its lost notices are up, or found dog. No one has claimed it. And let's see, now it's been over 10 days. There's a 10-day Tennessee stray adopt law. So we brought it home. My daughter fell in love with it, as I knew she would. It's very, very happy here. We've bought it so much stuff. So unless anybody claims this dog, we're gonna love it forever.
Did you name it?
I sure did. It has a great name. I named it after one of the race's favorite people, Hunt Brumby, who this race is so, so important to him. And he found a kitten when he got adopted by a kitten on his route. I think the first time he did Vol State, I think a kitten rode on his vest for like a day or two. Isn't that the story?
Yep.
Anyhow, he at the finish line, somebody took the kitten from him and adopted it. So I just thought it was so fitting that an animal found me on the race course, and so I named him Huntley. So his name is Huntley 283 because he found me at mile 283. So Huntley 283 is very, very happy in his home, and he's the best. He's a good cuddle dog. He's a good run dog. He's wonderful.
That's awesome. That's beautiful.
Someone said it's the best race swag they've ever heard of.
Absolutely, the best finishers award ever.
Yay!
That's wonderful. Congratulations on the finish. Not that it matters. What was the final time for you?
Final time was 9 days, 10 hours, 33 minutes.
Oh, that's amazing.
9, 10, 33.
Oh, amazing, Julie.
Thank you.
So cool. I'm so proud of you. This was one of those ginormous tasks. You're the second athlete that's gone after the Vol State 500K. Hunt was my first.
Aww.
And we're 2 for 2.
Yay!
Well,
thanks in large part to you. Thank you.
You did the work. You did the work.
But you always do a great job of guiding and setting up. And I told someone one time, you are as much a psychologist as an athletic director, because
we have many hats.
You sure do.
Julia, if people want to connect with you, what are some good ways to do so?
Oh, sure. I'm on Facebook as Julia Jordan. I go by Julie, but I'm Julia Jordan on there. And I am on Instagram at And I Must Go 55. And I Must Go 55. So
I'll put those in the show notes. Got it. Fantastic. Like I said, so proud of you. It's such an amazing accomplishment. So congratulations. Man, I couldn't get over it. I was beside myself when you finished. So
thank you.
Yes,
it made up for the times I sent you just a whole page of crying face emojis, right?
Hey, that's all part of the journey,
the highs and the lows.
It is all part of it. I had the text history, whereas like most of our races are just visual memories. I have a text history of this one. So
I know. Yeah. And it was so funny because your race started and I was tracking you. I got on the tracker 2 or 3 times during your race, and then yours was over and I was like, I'm still out here. So
Oh,
congrats to your finish as
thank you.
well. What a
Thank you,
great
Julie.
finish.
It's been an awesome conversation. I loved hearing the story. That's just, it's great. It's so great. So thank you so much for sharing it. And I hate to even ask, is there something that's going to be next?
I don't know. I'm in that dangerous realm of your body starts to feel better and
Yeah, yeah.
your heart and your mind are still like so euphoric. Like I feel like
Yes.
I can do anything. So yeah, we can talk about some things.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you, Julie, for your time. Thanks for sharing the story. We love you so much. And man, I can't wait for the next adventure.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Once again, my huge congratulations to Julie. It's just a magnificent accomplishment. She just persevered, and that's the best way I can put it. Because, as we talked about, there were some tough times. She went through a lot to get this finish, and I'm just so happy and proud of her. So, Julie, once again, awesome job. Thank you for sharing the story with us. I hope you guys enjoyed that immensely. Other news here, I guess coaching's getting busy again. Having a lot of people reach out, which is super cool. Super cool to have. I certainly appreciate that. If I have room and you want to reach out, I certainly am looking forward to having that conversation. So please, whatever avenue you choose, the show notes has all the ways you can find out more or contact me. My website's in the show notes, runningslife.run, or any of the contacts that are in the show notes. So by all means, please reach out about coaching. I appreciate that. Just had a talk over at Just Running about shut-in and shut-in training. Unfortunately, there weren't many people there. That's okay. That happens. But it was a great talk, and I got to sit down with Savannah, who's the manager over there, and another young lady by the name of... Goodness, I just had it on the tip of my tongue, and I'm sorry I'm blanking at the moment. But anyway, fantastic conversation. We really got, into the weeds about training, and they asked some great questions. So it was really nice just to share it with it. It doesn't matter how many people show up. It's just nice to kind of share information and get that out there. That's what this podcast is about. That's what I'm about. So another way to do it. So I really enjoyed that conversation. I hope I have another opportunity to do something like that. Whether it's about shut-in or any other race. I am sponsoring shut-in this race this year. I think registration goes on sale August 1st, so mark your calendars because it is registration. There is no lottery this year as a heads up, so make sure that you're setting your clock to registration time. We have the state meet this year, unfortunately. Well, not unfortunately, but the cross-country high school state meet is the same day as shut-in, so I will not be able to either compete or volunteer. Last year I got to volunteer. I really enjoyed that experience, but this year, obviously, I have a commitment. So, anyhow, lots going on. Holy cow, lots going on. With all of that said, cross country is picking up again. We've been practicing unofficially each day. Tomorrow is our actual first day of official practice, and we get right into the season pretty quickly. So things are ramping up. It's cool to see. My daughter's been running. She's going to get ready for her 8th grade year, and my son is getting ready for his senior year, which is just incredible. So fortunate to have these two enjoying the sport and being a part of it. Love it. Love being able to coach them and being a part of their lives in that way. So I'm going to continue to enjoy that. I'm on a time off right now, taking a little time off after High Lonesome. I'll be honest, I went through some kind of post-race blues. Just full disclosure, obviously it didn't go according to plan. That was really rough, really tough to deal with. I tried to remember that I had a great race. I felt so great at Heartbreak. So I'm hoping my next race is going to be in November. It's the JFK 50 miler, so I'm hoping I have another great race there. But for now, just taking some much needed time off. I got up with my strength coach, Coach Will France, and we've worked on kind of getting back to basic strength training routine. So I'm going to do 2 to 3 days a week of lifting right now. I hope to get back to running next week is my goal as I record this, I'm about 9-10ish days off. Like to give myself a full 2 weeks. I don't feel like I really need more. At this point, body feels pretty good. I didn't really have a really hard training cycle, so I don't really need to recover as hard as I had in the past, especially after the Grand Slam. So feeling like 2 weeks should suffice, and then I'm going to get back to training. And this time I'm going to do a full build. Going to do a lot of different cycling through, and we'll talk about that and what phases I'm going through, what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. And so we'll talk about my training leading into the JFK 50 miler. Going to be quite different than I've trained in the past because I'm not training for a 100 miler. I kind of want to get some turnover back. I want to get some speed back. I'd love to do a marathon in this build and actually try to run a good marathon. Now, what's a good marathon? Who knows? We'll see what shape I can get into. I think I ran 3:26 at Shamrock. So, and I didn't do that off of much training at all. So I'm thinking maybe, I could slip under 3 hours. I don't know. We'll see. But it's exciting to say the least. I'm glad I have something to look forward to. Still processing, the high lonesome. Hard to let it go when you're not out running right now. So I look forward to starting running back and getting back to it so that I can kind of work my way through this. I think running always helps me process and move forward. Whereas when I'm not running, it's been tough. So working right now with my dietitian, Kendra Miller. We're working on trying to shave off some pounds. I know I say this a lot, but I've gotten a lot more bulk on me, and it doesn't feel good. I'll be honest, I don't feel comfortable in my own skin right now. So we're going to be working on that to kind of, get me back to where I feel comfortable. It doesn't have to be me 20 years ago. I'd just like to get back to the me 4 years ago. So we're working on it, but anyhow. So those are the things that are going on right now. I hope this finds you well. And if you have comments or suggestions, topics you want me to talk on, please reach out. A few conversations, like I said, coming up. I'm hoping to record with Justin Walker, who finished Hard Rock. I trained him through Hard Rock, and I'm hoping to have a conversation with him, as well as going to have a coaching conversation with Travis Macy, the author of the Ultra Mindset. He's an adventure racer. You may have seen him on the Amazon series with Bear Grylls. He raced with his dad, who has Alzheimer's. He also just came out with a book about the journey he's been on with his father through Alzheimer's and such. So I'm hoping to have that conversation here coming up within the next few weeks. So stay tuned for those. Got a few other ideas for podcasts, but I'm always willing to hear what you guys want to hear. I couldn't do this without my Patreon supporters. I want to thank them for all their contributions, for financial contributions, for their emails of support and questions and things they want me to talk about. So if you're interested in supporting the podcast and you can do so financially, not that I require that at all. This is a resource for everybody, but it certainly helps me to keep it going. You can find more information in the show notes about Patreon and how you can support for as little as $1 a month. So thank you guys. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of the podcast. As always, keep moving forward, my friends. Running is life.